If you're curious, are you ready to go into business? I have some answers for you. Everybody tells me I should sell my soap. What should I do? I've been making soap for 2 months and everybody loves it. What do I need to start my business? How do I know if I'm ready to start selling soap? Can I really make money with this soap business thing? Is it too late to start a soap business in 2020? What do I need in order to start selling my soap? These are just some of the questions that you may have as you are making up your concoctions and all of that. I will tell you the first thing to do is breathe. Do it with me. Inhale, exhale. Inhale, exhale. So, here's my number one piece of advice for you if you are trying to figure out whether or not you should start your soap business. My number one piece of advice is don't start by asking in a Facebook group. You will probably get eaten alive. The bottom line is there is no right amount of time that you should be making your soap, doing your research and development before there's some magic wand that gets waved and says you are now able to sell your soap. I'm being facetious, but I'm also being serious at the same time. What I have seen and my experience has been is people get really excited. They make a couple of batches of soap and then what ends up happening, all of us, I don't care who it is that you ask, you've given it out to your family and your friends, maybe even your coworkers and even strangers on the street that might be interested in what it is that you have made on your kitchen counter, in your basement, in a cabinet, in a closet, wherever, doesn't matter, but you've made it. And people inevitably come back and say, oh my gosh, that is the best thing I have ever used. And you start thinking, maybe I should sell it. Could I sell it? Should I sell it? How much will I pay for it? How much will people pay me for it? How much is this thing going to cost? What do I need? All of those questions start to come very, very quickly. And what inevitably happens is you find some kind of group on the internet that has soap in the title, any group, and you say, oh my gosh, guess what, guys? Everybody loves my soap. I'm ready to start a business. The first thing that people do is they search your profile and they say, you just started making soap 2 months ago. How dare you? How dare you? How dare you? How dare you think that you can start a business? I've been making soap for 25,000 years. And it took me 6,000 years before I was even able to put a label on it. Don't you dare sell it. What I want you to do is cover your ears, close your eyes, and go the other way. The truth of the matter is, nobody can tell you when you are or are not ready to start selling your soap. Only you can answer that question. And you can base that on 3 things. Number 1, am I making a safe product? Do I know that all of the ingredients that I have used are safe? Do I know that the product is not lye heavy? Do I know that it's working the way that I need it to work? And that's typically the spirit that most advice givers are giving you in different groups when you post that question. However, that's not the spirit that it comes across. It's more about you should be making soap for at least 5 years before you decide to sell it. Okay, but who's paying for it in those 5 years? Just curious. And I'm not saying that you make a batch, you like it, and now you put a price tag on it. That is the farthest thing from what I'm saying, because there's a lot more behind that. But there is no magical number on the amount of time from when you start making soap to when you start selling the soap. The number one thing is the product safe? Meaning you understand the entire soap making process so that you have a safe bar of soap that people can use. And you're not going to burn anybody's face off. Because come on, nobody wants to burn their face off. Unless it's a non-facial bar, they shouldn't be using it on their face anyway. But you can't control what people do with your stuff once they get it. So just keep that in mind. So the number one thing is it safe? The number two thing is, are you covered as a business owner? And what that means is, do you have your product liability insurance? I don't care where you live in the world. If someone is unhappy with your product, do you want them to be able to come after you for that? So do you have the insurance that you need in order to be covered? The worst thing that could happen is someone has some kind of an allergic reaction to your soap and you're not covered. They're going to come after you. So make sure that you are covered that way. Make sure you're also covered legally. Have you filed with the state or whatever local county you're in? Some states and some counties in the United States, you can't make a skincare product or a cosmetic in your home. So you may not even be able to sell the product legally. So make sure that you check off all of your legal boxes in terms of whether or not you're even able to sell that product. And then, are you protected via insurance? And the third thing is it a viable business? And this would probably take about 15,000 videos. But what I mean by that is, do you know how much it costs for you to make that soap? And do you know how much you need to price it in order to sell it at a profit? Those are two very different numbers that take a whole lot into consideration before you decide, yes, I'm ready to sell it, and yes, I know how much I'm going to price it at. Because your pricing is much more than just those ingredients that you're putting into the batch. It includes your electricity, it includes your water, it includes your internet, it includes your web hosting, it includes your vending fees, all of those different elements, your labor. Unless, I don't know where you can work in the world and not pay anybody. However, if it's really a business and something that you're thinking about scaling, you have to take into account all of those costs before you say, oh, well, I paid $20 for these ingredients. I got 20 bars of soap out of this batch. That means it's $1 per bar. I'm going to just multiply that by 2. I'm going to charge $2 per bar of soap. Number one, you'll never have that price. And number two, you are missing the boat on so many other expenses when you go from a hobby to a business. So these are just some things to consider when you are trying to decide, am I ready to take my hobby of soap making to a business of soap making? Number one, is your product safe? Honestly, do you know through and through that every single time that recipe that you're using is going to give you the outcome that you want, that is safe for someone's skin? Number two, are you covered legally and are you covered financially in terms of product liability insurance and whatever the rules and regulations are for where you live and where you're creating that product? One other thing to consider is the labeling. Do you know how to label the product correctly so that you're not making erroneous claims and you have everything on the label that needs to be? Know that there are two very different requirements if you're making a soap or a cosmetic. And sometimes a soap falls into that cosmetic line depending on what you say it does. And then the last thing, I can't remember what it was. What was that last thing? Pricing. Do you know your pricing? Do you know your cost? And do you know how much you're going to charge people? These are just some of the baseline things. There is so much more to it. There is one thing to love making what it is that you make. It's another thing for your friends and your family to turn around and say, you should start a business. Know that it does change when you go from a hobby to a business. And if you at least start with those 3 foundational things, do I know how to make it? Am I protected? And do I know what it costs me in order for me to price it appropriately? You'll be in a really good place to answer that question of whether or not you're ready to start your soap business. Oh, by the way, before we go, if you have enjoyed this video, be sure to click that subscribe button to get the notifications the next time that we go live, because If you don't click it, you don't know when we're live. And if you don't know when we're live, you miss the live broadcast. If you don't know when I post a video, somebody will say, did you see that video that Zakia did? And you're going to say, no, I didn't see it. Why not? Because I didn't click subscribe. Click that subscribe button right below the video. I'll see you next time. Bye, guys.